Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dare to Defy Celebrating Women in Unconventional Roles. My name is Tish Tally. My pronouns are she, her. I'm in Houston, Texas. I'm a cisgender Black female with dark brown shoulder length hair, and I'm wearing a fuchsia shirt with pinkish framed eyeglasses. My virtual background is white with the Dive In Festival logo. And folks, I'm thrilled to be your moderator for today's session. We have an exciting and an insightful program lined up, and I am so glad that you could join us today. Audience, we'd like to invite you to participate in today's session by checking out slido.com or using the QR code and entering hashtag Dare to Defy 2024. And I also want to take a moment to again thank our wonderful sponsors who supported our efforts today. We could not have made this happen without you. All right, so to kick things off, I want to extend a warm welcome to our esteemed panelists, Dion Bowers, Eleni Lukidi, Samantha Nelson, and Kirsten Quigley. Each of these incredible women brings a wealth of experience and a unique perspective to our discussion today. Our theme, Dare to Defy, is all about challenging the status quo and embracing the courage to lead with authenticity, say that 3 times, and candor. Folks, we will explore the biggest challenges that our panelists have faced in their career journeys, learn from their lessons, and talk about the leadership traits that have made them successful in navigating that double standard that often happens in the workplace. We will also discuss the importance of having a strong community or group of trusted advisors, as well as the changes that we're looking forward to for future generations. So I encourage you again to actively participate by entering your questions into Slido. And thank you once again for being here. Let's make this session engaging, insightful, and inspiring. So without further ado, let's begin with an introduction from our first panelist, Dion. Dion, welcome to our session today. I would like it if you could introduce yourself and then also answer the question, what brought you to today's session?
Thank you very much, Tish. I'm really excited to be here and appreciate the opportunity to participate in this discussion. To the audience, happy Thursday, wherever you are around the world. My name is Dion Bowers. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm based out of Toronto, Ontario, Canada. I am Jamaican born, and I'm here representing the Canadian Association of Black Insurance Professionals, otherwise known as KBIP, where I am one of 3 co-founders and chair. I have short brown hair. I'm wearing a green top and a white blazer with some leopard print accessories, my eyeglasses and my earrings. And to summarize who I am, I'm a business owner, educator, author, and I've been in the industry for almost 25 years. Why I am here, what spoke to me about this session, simply put, it's the word defy. Okay, Webster's dictionary, I love a dictionary, it defines defy as refusing boldly to obey or to yield to. Okay, now I'm not a fan of the word obey for different reasons, but here we are. It's a word that the word defy denotes negative talk. And the perception is that individuals who dare to defy are considered problematic. They are considered not worthy of promotion in the corporate space. They're not coachable. And essentially, they are disruptors. Now, defiance, provided it is constructive, should be embraced. And as leaders and organizations, we have to be able to look at defiance as a healthy attribute, not a negative one.
That is fantastic, Deanna. And the panelists, we're obviously in agreement with you, and I'm sure the audience can relate as well. Thank you for that. Eleni, I give you a moment to introduce yourself and also answer the question, what brought you to today's session?
Thank you, Tish. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all. I'm also very happy and very honored being here with all of you today. My name is Eleni Likoudi. I am based in Greece. I am Greek. I'm wearing a shirt, a blue shirt. I am in the insurance industry for the last 25 years now, and I'm working in Willis Towers Watson, responsible for Central Eastern Europe, Middle East, and Africa. I love what Dion said, and I'll be very honest with you. When I was asked to participate in this group, I had to Google, I had also to check to a dictionary in order to make sure that I properly understand the terminology of DeFi. So as soon as I saw it as well, I said, yes, oh yes, I will participate on this one. As I shared with this group previously, we did have also an event for diving in Greece, where I'm based 2 days ago. And the way I'd like to share something similar as I shared when we opened this event. We have been discussing for the last many years about inclusion, equity, diversity. But I think that the number of years that we have been discussing about this very important topic are not equal with the progress that has been made. So I think that we can make more. I was looking some stats, and I was saying that globally, for C-suite roles, only 26 of the positions for C-suites are being held by women, which I think speaks on itself. And also, when looking at the pay gap in my country, Greece, I saw that that is 11%. And I can tell you that when I shared that with my audience 2 days ago, many people raised their hand and they said, I can tell you it's more than 11%. So having said that, I'm very happy that we're here. I think that we can do more together. And this is a great opportunity to discuss this further. Thank you. Thank you for including me.
Thank you, Eleni. I could not agree more. I love that you took a moment to look up the dictionary and then had this, oh, I completely relate to it moment. Even though we're in different continents, countries, it's all relatable. Thank you. Samantha, welcome.
Thank you so much. It's really lovely to be here today. Good morning, good afternoon to everyone, wherever you are in the world. Thank you for joining us today. Just to introduce myself, my name's Samantha Nelson. My pronouns are she, her. I'm based in London. I work for Marshall McLellan in the London office. I'm Gen X, which is it's a better way of saying I was born in the 1960s. Let's not go into that too much. I'm white British woman. I have a transgender history. I'm wearing my pink tinted glasses, brown hair, purple dress, Fair Isle style cardigan, looking quite fashionable, even if I do say so myself. Someone's got to. My background, I actually spent 25 years, beginning my working career, worked in the offshore oil and gas industry. So the oil rigs, as they're commonly referred to. I won't get technical on you, but that's not what they are. I was an engineer. I was a platform manager. I got involved in design of it. Obviously quite a hostile environment, very hyper masculine environment. And midway through that 25-year stint, I transitioned. I embraced who I was, and I stepped out of this centralized belief, the stereotypical view, and said, look, I'm different. So I stepped into that defiance role. But wanting to defy is one thing, standing out. No one wants to stand out particularly. We all want to be included. So the importance of this topic for me is recognizing the defiance, recognizing where we're stretching conversations, stretching boundaries and limits, but recognize why we're doing it. We're doing it for the good of all. We're doing it for inclusive purposes. I moved into insurance about 10 years ago, but my focus still remains on offshore energy. So I was born in the 1960s. I still fly the world. I still get on helicopters and visit offshore platforms. Again, someone's got to do it. I'm overjoyed to be here. But it comes back to that visibility piece, and the representation we have on this panel is absolutely fabulous. It's important we listen to stories. It's important we share stories, because through that sharing, we encourage growth in one another.
Completely agree, Samantha. And I'm so grateful that you and the rest of the panelists are here today to share those stories. Kirsten, welcome.
Hey, good morning. And good morning, everybody else out there. I am Kirsten Quigley. I'm a risk consultant for Aon. A little bit about me. I am a Caucasian female, blonde hair, blue eyes, currently in my red power suit blazer with a white undershirt. And I haven't been in the insurance industry as long as the rest of the panelists, but I have consistently tried to insert myself in probably more masculine roles pretty much my whole life. At 15, I became a volunteer fireman, and I still do that today, which kind of kicked off my love for fire and engineering. I went and did my undergrad in fire, arson, and explosion investigation. I got a master's degree in fire protection engineering. I've worked in law enforcement. I've been overseas and led federal bomb classes in Australia. And I have a championship barbecue team. So any kind of role that females typically don't dominate in, I've tried to at least get my foot in the door, and I still do that to this day. So what got me interested in speaking on this was, one, I was brought up to kind of stick to what I believe in and be an authentic person, which meant probably being defiant on the terms of what people thought I should be doing with my life. But coming to realize that it's not really about being defiant. It's about being highly motivated and doing what you love and things like that. So there's definitely a passion there. And I think that even though I haven't been in the insurance industry as long as some of these people, I have probably a different experience than most of them, being a little bit on the younger side and just coming from a different background.
Oh, for sure. Kirsten, when we were prepping, thank you for that. And you were sharing your background. I think it's all fascinating, all of the background and knowledge and experience each of you bring, Kirsten. I kind of took a bit of a little preference towards the barbecue one that you brought, being a champion, and me being from Texas, I'm just going to say. So kudos to you. Thank each of you again, panelists, for sharing your story. And audience, if you were curious about why are they sitting on this panel today, I think they just answered it for you when they shared their stories. So let's dive into our questions. And I want to start with you, Dion. The first one for you. What are some of the biggest challenges you faced in your career journey? And what lessons did you learn?
So I had to think about this because the challenges somewhat outweigh the successes, but I digress. In no particular order, the challenges that I faced: unhealthy competition, mediocrity versus meritocracy, and lack of representation of Black female leaders in this industry. So if I'm to start with unhealthy competition, it's what I mean by that is that I've worked for and with individuals who have felt threatened by my capabilities. I'm a competitive person. I played sports growing up. I still continue to do things like that, but have never understood the concept of being a threat to somebody in the corporate space. I remember a conversation with a senior leader who said to me, boldface, that I was the smartest person she knew. And so I had to pause to process this statement, because being the junior employee, I was hoping to be able to learn from the smartest person or people in the room. So for me, the dynamic was off. I didn't quite understand it. And so I had to dig deep and question whether I had a future with this organization. And the answer was no, I didn't. Many of us have probably heard the saying, employees don't leave jobs, they leave leaders. The question now becomes why, right? I think it's critical for leaders to put their emotions aside and focus on identifying employees who can eventually become part of an organization's succession plan. The mediocrity versus meritocracy, the promotion of employees based on politics versus merit. Again, I don't understand this, but throughout my career, I have heard, Dion, you just got to be able to play the game. What game? And why is this a game? Right? I was hired to do a job based on specific skills that you, the organization, designed. So I'm trying to understand where in the job description does it say must be able to play the political game, right? So I struggle with a lot of that. And it's funny because in preparation for today, I sat down and calculated the number of leaders that I've had in my insurance career and came up with lucky number 13. Now, of the 13, I can honestly say that I had a great deal of respect for 2 of them and learned a lot. The other 11, it certainly brought out what not to do and what not to be, right? And I mean, have you ever read a promotion announcement and after reading it, you said, but how did this happen? Okay. So my point is, as leaders, we need to do a better job of A, recognizing that not everyone is meant to be a leader, and B, promoting individuals based on their merit. Right? And so when I look at those 2, again, it's something that I've had discussions with people in my circle about, and we're on the same page. So I often surround myself with like-minded individuals. And I mean, when I look at my circle and I look at the number of Black women in that circle, we always come back to that third challenge of the lack of representation, especially at the leadership level in Canada. I can only speak for the Canadian landscape. I'm neither going to relive my trauma navigating this industry as a Black woman who knows her worth, nor am I going to cite statistics that prove diverse teams improve performance within organizations. What I am going to address here is the need for organizations to recognize that diversity equates to intersectionality. I heard it yesterday. I was on a mentorship call that diversity is representation of identities, differences, experiences, including culture, gender, identity, religion, sexual orientation, and other areas of intersectionality. So that last part, other areas of intersectionality. As a Black Jamaican woman, that's my intersectionality. There are individuals who can relate to me and others that cannot, and that's fine. My point is, when I see an executive leadership team or a board of directors in 2024, okay, that is made up of white men and white women, I can't help but think that this is not an organization that has considered my intersectionality as either an employee or as a consumer. I still have to buy your product, right? So if I can't relate, it's difficult to say I'm going to buy into what you're selling. I'm often asked by students who are new to the industry or new to the country about which organization they should consider working for. And my response is canned. Do your homework and understand what is important to you. If culture is a high priority, remember that you are a culture add, not a culture fit. Right? And so the lessons learned, I mean, there's a ton of lessons, but the biggest lessons that I've learned over the years is to validate myself and not look for validation from others. Each of us have a duty to promote ourselves from within and understand our worth. I've also learned that you define what success looks like, not what society tells you what success should look like for you. Right? The financial game was only part of how I measured my success within this industry. However, when I left corporate and I made that decision, it was a tough decision. I realized that there was much more to being successful, stepping away from what didn't suit me. And we have to recognize that.
Thank you, Dion. That was fantastic. I was taking notes as you were talking. Eleni, would you also share?
Yes, thank you, thank you. And what a story from Dion. So thank you very much for sharing. I think I had two main challenges throughout my career. So the first one, and as Dion implied, I felt that there was a lack of representation for senior women in leadership teams. So throughout my career, and in particular for the last years, there have been a great number of cases where I was the only senior in the team. And, you know, when I looked at myself and how I reacted and interacted with these teams, sometimes I might have been more aggressive than I should, because I felt this feeling of the only in the room. So I noticed myself and my reactions, and the fact that I didn't have a cycle of women or peers that I could relate to, sometimes could be a problem for me. So that was the first challenge. The second challenge, that in particular the first year that I started my more international career, if you want, was the fact that I come from Greece. So the fact that I came from a smaller country with a lot of history, but not a huge weight when it comes to the insurance industry. So, you know, usually when you think about insurance, you will think about UK, you might think about US, you will not think of Greece. I felt that I had to spend time and effort in order to convince various stakeholders that despite the fact that I come from a small country, that despite the fact that I am a woman, I totally deserve where I am. So I have a voice and I have a lot to say in the room. So from that, and being perfectly honest, for parts of my region as well, which can be more conservative, I found it that I have to pay double the effort in order to be heard. These were the challenges, the lessons. Again, there were many. First of all, I totally agree that you have to define what success looks like, 100%. I think that you should be very clear not to let anyone limit your potential. I have met a good number of people throughout my career who try to tell me, this is your limit. You cannot go above that because you come from a small country. Nobody will hear you. So don't let anyone limit your potential. Build confidence. The way that I handled that, and I'm not saying that this is the right course of action, but for me, especially earlier in my career, knowledge enabled me to build confidence. So usually I am the most prepared in the room. Usually I'm the one who will have done all the homework, will know. I'm trying to delegate now, and I'm trying sometimes being the most senior in the room to let the people brief me rather than the other way around, which I can tell you it's a challenge until now. But I'm trying to learn something new every day. So I set up some time, 20 minutes every day, in order to develop myself. And I'm trying to understand what limits me as a person. So having read certain books, with some of them I can relate, with some other not really. But I'm trying to understand some patterns, some characteristics which have been limiting my potential, and understanding also the biases involved. So as long as I identify them, then I can cure them, if that's the right word from a Greek person. So I think these are the lessons learned for my side.
Eleni, it was the perfect word from a Greek person. So thank you. Both of you, it's so interesting to hear both of you share your stories and see how there were so many similarities between your experiences, even though you literally are in two different countries, ladies. Audience, as I was listening and taking notes myself, the lessons learned that I heard were self-validation and self-advocacy, defining success, not letting anyone else define it for you, not allowing anyone to limit your potential, being confident, and having that growth mindset and self-awareness, letting all of those be tools in your toolkit for your career journey. So again, thank you, ladies, very much for that. All right, we're going to dive into our next question. And Dion, again, if it's okay, I want to start with you with this one. I want to think about key leadership traits like authenticity, candor, courage, which are often valued in men but viewed negatively in women. And you both spoke to that a bit in your responses earlier. So what I'd like you to do, Dion, if it's okay, is elaborate a little bit more for our audience and how you navigated through those double standards.
So I'm gonna start off by saying this question fascinates me. It actually made me laugh because of the fact that when I read it, I'm like, are we still doing this? Okay, so I've navigated this double standard by adopting the same qualities that are valued in men because I had to, right? We're in an industry that is male dominated. And the roles that I've held in the past, as well as my current roles as a business owner and chair of a nonprofit organization, have forced me to navigate how I approach my work despite proving my worth over the last nearly 25 years. I'm still navigating the double standard, but how I approach it is very different in my 48th trip around the sun. I am recognizing that when there is a disparity, I'm pointing it out and I'm working on or devising a plan to move forward with improvement in mind. It's why we formed the Canadian Association of Black Insurance Professionals. We recognized that there weren't safe spaces for Black people to have conversations about what's bothering them. Hence, all of these ERGs within the corporate world, right? I'm advocating through my platforms, my personal brand, and any other brand that I'm attached to. I'm advocating for myself as well as others who don't have a voice. And I think it's ridiculous in 2024 that women still, I'm going to say women because, and those that identify as women, we still need to keep quiet. And I don't understand it, right?
Yeah.
I'm supporting others who are experiencing similar challenges, and I'm leading by example and working towards achieving the change that I want to see. Eleni, you talked about pay equity, the gender gap, gender roles, all of that stuff needs to change. And the expectation that we as a society continue to accept behaviors and attitudes that are deemed appropriate and desirable for individuals based on gender is preposterous, especially in 2024, right? Individuals and organizations have to do a better job at redefining buzzwords like authenticity, as an example. What does that mean, right? This whole bring your authentic self to work. What does that mean? Because if I have to conform to fit in, am I truly being my authentic self? Right? Think about that. You're asking me to be someone I'm not, but you're asking me to be authentic. I don't get it. Right? So this is a great opportunity for everyone, with individuals and organizations, to reevaluate and not look at this as defiance, but a step towards progress.
Excellent point, Dion. And as you were sharing that, I was thinking about earlier when you talked about the game, right? That is played, you're taught, play the game. And what I heard you say earlier too is whose game? Going back to your point about authenticity, right? And the rules that were designed that we are expected to conform towards. Thank you for that, Kirsten.
Yes. So I'm going to take a step back because I became aware of this quote unquote double standard very, very early on in life. A little bit of my background is that growing up, I was raised in a family with all boys, all my cousins. I have a brother. There was no other girl. It was just me. So if I wanted to fit in, I would have to sit there and ask questions. Oh, why does he get to play baseball and I'm stuck inside? Somebody's trying to teach me how to sew. So the gender roles in my family dynamic kind of made me start questioning things a little bit more than maybe in some other situations, right? And from that, I think once I started asking these questions, and I would ask my grandmother, oh, why can't I go outside and play baseball? And she wouldn't have a good answer. So eventually they just started letting me. And I realized that being able to ask these questions and kind of sticking up for yourself, and I want to do these things, like what's preventing me from actually doing these things, kind of shaped the way that I went in life. So I was very fortunate that I did have a family that supported all the random directions I decided to go, which is great. But I think even in my career, there's certain things that I had to learn. When you talk about authentic self or buzzwords such as aggressive or stubborn or defiant, somebody this past year actually goes, you're not manipulative, you're just highly motivated. So whoever is telling you this, that's how they see things, is that you are being manipulative, but you're really not. If you break down the word, I'm not manipulating a situation, I'm not stubborn, maybe I'm a little defiant, but I'm highly motivated, I'm passionate about what I do. It just, how does that come off to people? So I think that how we educate people on kind of what words to use and how are you perceiving this, kind of like a perception check for some people, I think that's super important. And I think it's also important, and something that I found that works for me, is it's important to be relatable more than it is likable in a lot of situations. Whenever I go out on client meetings, chances are it's the first time I'm meeting people, and 95% of the time I'm meeting with an older white guy that's going to show me around a plant or a facility. How do you relate to them? How are they going to relate to you as a younger female that is kind of more of a force rather than somebody that's more permissive, maybe? And finding something you can relate to them with has been the biggest key to success, because if you can get them to talk to you about anything, whether that be food or cars, something that you can just have a conversation about, people loosen up a little bit, and you don't hear words like stubborn. You can say things and it doesn't come off as aggressive. So being able to have good conversations with people and kind of educating them, I think is helpful, especially if somebody goes, why are you being so aggressive? Or this sounds a little hostile, why don't you take it down a notch? It's not being aggressive. It's, if you said the same thing as a male, I think that nobody would take it any differently. And then they kind of take a step back and they're like, yeah, you're right.
Agree. Very true, Kristen. It would not be thought of if it were from a male versus female. That's an excellent point. That was both of those stories. It's interesting, Dion, you were able to share your experience through your journey thus far. And I know, Kirsten, you're earlier in career on your journey, but you brought in the insight of, you recognize that double standard before you even entered the workforce, right? And so you started learning how to do what Dion was sharing, self-advocate, right? And say, well, grandma, why not? Which is excellent. Audience, what I heard from both Kirsten and Dion was the key elements here to navigate through this are self-advocacy versus acceptance, right? And also creating opportunities to build a connection or create the relatable situations when you're continuing on your career journey. Again, thank you both very much for those excellent points of view.
Tish, can I just add one more thing to Kristen's
please.
point? I think it's important as well, because I absolutely agree, to be relatable versus likable. I think where we also have to, as part of that education piece, is understand that we cannot stop asking why, right? For those who have children between the ages of 2 and 4, maybe, it's constantly, why this, why that, why that. If we stop that, then that natural curiosity is going to dissipate, right? And I think it's important that we're also, again, educating individuals who say you're stubborn or you're too aggressive or that angry Black woman syndrome that some people just don't, they think it, but they say it, which is beyond me. But understanding that it's passion. I'm fueled by something, or we are all fueled by something. So it's a great point, Kirsten.
I agree. You're right, Dion. Thank you for that, especially about children, how they often ask why. And as parents, we often want them to stop and just do what we're saying, which then, it's interesting how that translates into the adulthood side of it. But I think we as parents or society now, we're starting to expect the younger generations to ask why. And I'm hoping that that continues. Dion, I also agree with you about the relatable being a good tool to have in the tool chest, but then not going to the point of conforming, right? Because that's when you bear the burden of emotional tax, and just the psychological burden of having to be someone that you're not, which is heavy load to carry. So very true, Dion. Just walking that line between relatable as part of your tools, but not conforming or adjusting who you are. What are your thoughts, Dion?
I absolutely agree with you. I mean, I say what I say because it's lived experience, right?
Yep.
And understanding you talk about the emotional piece, and the physical, the toll it takes on individuals to be that other person and not allow who you are at home to come to work. Right. And so part of that education is organizations understanding individuals. Why is that person acting the way they are acting? Dig deep. That's what leaders do.
Yes.
You can't lead without humanizing the process.
100% agree. The why. Start with why instead of assumptions, right? Dion, I agree. 100%. All right. I know we want to make sure we get all of our wonderful questions in. And Samantha, you've been super patient. So I want to start this next one with you, if that is okay.
That's fine.
Awesome. And the question I have for you is around the trusted advisors and having a strong community. And we talked about it in the prep session, why that's important to have that as a part of your toolkit, Samantha. I'm curious to know, how important has this been in your journey? And what advice do you have for those who are unsure where or how to start building their community and their support group?
Yeah, really interesting question. Yeah. And I think it's even more prevalent in this day and age when a lot of us are working hybrid as well. So I'll reflect on my journey. I will pick up on one strand we were talking just earlier on, and that's with regard to conforming. So before you create your group, you've got to realize who you are yourself. I mentioned that I transitioned the first 15 years of my life. I was sitting on the other side of the table. Last 20 years, I've been myself. Those first 15 years, I was desperately trying to fit in and wear this mask and perform what I was being told I had to be. But it was a performance. It wasn't me. Consequently, I could never really make any true connections. I could never communicate fully because I wasn't being authentic. I wasn't bringing my authentic self to work in the true respect. So consequently, I never got that support network. I felt like I was clawing my way through my career and not really getting anywhere. That took me through to like the late 90s, early 2000s. And there was something changed there. The space I'd been was predominantly masculine. However, I was starting to see female engineers coming in. And it was like a road to Damascus moment for me, thinking, oh, women can work in this space. I can work me here. I can be me. And from there, that realization and that sort of epiphany that I could be myself really opened myself up and allowed me to actually connect truly with people. Now, the people I connected with and the true allies were these women who were just coming through because we saw so much commonality in the battles we were fighting. But there's a problem with that. When you form a community or a group like that of very like-minded peers or facing the same challenge, it can become a bit of an echo chamber effect. So yeah, great for bouncing ideas off one another, great for support, and that is very, very important. but you're never going to break out of your mindset. You're never going to get into a learner mindset. You're never going to change the world. What you need to do to build your community is, yes, very important. You have that support network, people who can champion you and lift you up when you're down, but equally invite people into your support network who will make you grow, make you challenge yourself, push you that bit further, because that's what we all need. We can become comfortable in our space. We can support one another, but unless we get our learner mindset, our growth impetus, we're never going to get out of it. Now, you can do that via that stretch mechanism, invite challenge, and stand up and state your case. No one's got all the answers, and I think that's another important part of the community build is share with one another. We've said about the silos that can develop, and I very much work around multiple silos. Is what I do a lot of time with working on intersectionality and thinking about, okay, what impact can have on one group of people, and we become so absorbed with it. The likelihood is the very same structures are impacting upon another group of people, but we're not seeing it because we're so involved in our own world. We've got to break those silos down. We've got to connect. We've got to learn from one another. We've got to support one another. So when we talk about support in that community that we build, it should be intersectional. We should be looking wider. We should be looking to support one another. We should be looking to both lead and take that point, but also learn, step back and learn. And then also important, something I've come to realize as I'm getting older, I am feeling quite old at the moment, is that legacy piece. Okay, when I've gone, I've fought a lot of battles, in my mind that I think, I've achieved, I've done remarkably well. If I think back to when I was in the northeast of England, when I was, a young kid, I wouldn't have dreamt of being here as I am now, in the position I am now. I want to show other people that it's possible. I want to open the doors. I want to hold those doors open and make sure we make it easier for the next generation to step in and not have to fight the same fights time and time again. That's what we should be doing as a community. Looking after ourselves, growing ourselves, but growing the next generation, supporting the next generation.
Fantastic, Samantha. I agree with you. It's fascinating, too, to hear you talk about your experience when we were just on the subject of not being able to be authentic and just the burden that one carries. And then to hear you amplify that with your story, right? 15 years not showing up in the manner in which you wanted to, being your true self, and then getting that moment where you were able to for the next 15 years. Thank you. That is so powerful. Thank you very much, Samantha. So I'm sorry. Thank you very much, Samantha. Okay, Eleni.
Thank you. Actually, Samantha said it all. So I think that I will be very brief, and I totally agree with everything she said. And thank you, Samantha, for sharing your story as well. My experience, if having a cycle of trusted advisors has helped 100%, being very honest, I think that I wouldn't be able to make it if I didn't have that. For various reasons, I totally agree with the challenging part of Samantha's story. So you need people who will challenge you, who will maybe put you out of your comfort zone. But having said that, sometimes you need also people that you can simply share your story, and they will be simply there to hear what you've been going through. No judgment, be vulnerable, and be yourself. So yes, I had that in my life. I still have this in my life. I'm very lucky and grateful that I do. How to choose your trusted advisors? I think the fact that we say trusted advisors, it implies how to choose. You have to build trust. You have to have trust. You have to be able to share your stories unfiltered without thinking, will that affect me in my career progression? So have people that you have no concerns on what you will be saying. And people who will give you another perspective on your problems or your issues, but at the same time, be people that will hear your story and will be there to support you either way. So I think that it's very important for your career development to have people on the ground that can provide this level of support to you.
Completely agree. I'm glad you placed emphasis on the word trusted advisors too, the trust, emphasis on trust, Eleni. I think that's extremely important, right? Because that helps you then to show up as yourself, as we were just talking about when we listen to Samantha share her journey. All right, audience, I want to keep us going, but I also want to remind you, if there are questions that you have, feel free to enter those into the Slido, either drop them in and so that we can catch them and have you participate and interact with us. All right, moving to our next question, folks. Samantha, I want to start with you again, if that's okay.
That's fine.
What changes have you seen in the industry, or what are some of the hopes that you have for future generations through that optimistic lens, Samantha?
Yeah, thanks for that. I think I touched upon a lot of this during the last segment there, and certainly if I reflect on the oil industry, if I was to say how things changed from the 1990s to current day, there's definitely been changes. Probably slower in that industry than it has been in the insurance industry. So although we think we've got challenges in insurance, different sectors are in different places. Let's say that for a start. But certainly the likes of having these events, what shocked me when I first came into insurance was the networking ability, the ability to work together. Engineering tends to be very siloed, very insular, very technical. You get into a project and you get very involved in it. Coming into insurance, it's more of a people-based sector. Okay, well, I still do, an engineering piece, so it's technical, but it's more people-centric. It's more involved. It's getting to know people. And that was like a breath of fresh air to me. The thing I loved, and this is when I first joined, so back in 2013, 2014, were the number of networks that were starting to occur there. Bearing, this is the 10th year of diving. The year I joined the insurance industry was the first year of diving. It was in its infancy. It was starting. The dialogue was there. And that filled me with such hope. And I think we've continued. There's been a slight hiatus during that period because of the global pandemic, and things have changed and shifted. But the positive drive forward has always been encouraged. There is an undulation, I'd say undoubtedly, in any form of progress. You always get peaks and troughs. But I think in general, it's been a positive forward progression. And the level of discussion we're having and the breadth of discussions we're having are absolutely fabulous. So yeah, the festival itself, I'd say, immensely positive. Networks, so colleague resource networks, and the initiatives that are being driven. We've mentioned the gender pay gap. We're going to have the race pay gap. We're going to have various initiatives because data can drive change. And I think that's something we shouldn't lose sight on. So gathering that data and being able to present not just the moral argument, but for inclusion and for progressing everyone on an equitable basis, but back it up with the data. This is why. This is how. Why doesn't the boardroom reflect our community in general? So wherever we're residing, what is our culture like? Why do our meeting rooms not resemble that? The people we're providing business to. So that's the questions we should be asking. Still hasn't been answered yet, because we quite rightly say the percentage of females, the percentage of different ethnicities, certainly from the LGBT perspective, there's not proportional representation in some rooms. And we should never rest on our laurels and think, okay, we're there. We've just got to continue being more open. I think that's the final message that I'd like to get across. There's still more to do. There's still more to learn. There's still more to share. But that's a good thing. It is a good thing because it gives us a path to growth. It allows us to connect more. And that's the piece that for me, brought me back to this industry. And I just recognize there's further change needed. But I think the discussions we have, the likes of this, are absolutely fabulous.
I appreciate that, Samantha. I'm hearing good isn't good enough. While there's been progress, there's room for more, lots more, right? Thank you.
Yes, indeed.
Kirsten, let me get your perspective.
Yeah, so I think that one of the biggest things that I want to see change in the industry isn't necessarily a changing of the culture. I wish that people would be taught more social skills, more people skills. I think that the one thing that's helped me across this is get to know people, know how to have conversations with people. I always say that all these doors can open, but if you don't know how to have a conversation with somebody, you may have the right answer, but you're never going to get there, right? So knowing your social cues, knowing, again, how to have a conversation with people, it's important. And coming from my time in the fire department, you're running into burning buildings with these people. Like, if you don't trust them, if you don't know how to communicate, that's a life and death situation. Coming into insurance, not that bad, but again, it's important. You have to trust these people that you're working with. And even if that's just a conversation of getting to know what they like to do outside of work and being able to have genuine conversations, again, maybe not surrounding work, but then bringing work into that somehow, I think that would be super helpful to help move this forward.
Good point. Kirsten, the socialization, being able to communicate with others and build community and connections. Completely agree with that. This was fantastic, folks, and so much so that we are now getting questions from our audience that I would love to add to our conversation today. Kirsten, I'd like to begin with you with our first audience question.
Okay.
How can we dismantle some of the boys' club mentality that exists in the industry today?
Oh, that's a really great question, whoever asked it. And I would like to think that I'm an honorary member of most boys' clubs. And not because I necessarily earned my way in, but because I just put myself in there, right? You have to be okay in uncomfortable situations sometimes. And sometimes you're going to feel like an outcast, like you don't belong. But the more you stay there and the more you put yourself in these situations and the more they see you in these situations, I think that definitely helps. Being able to, again, be relatable, not likable. If you can relate to them on any level and they see you not as like a female or male, or they don't see you as like a category, right? I think that is going to be the biggest thing that helps. Don't be a category, be someone that they'll go to for advice or they'll go to ask you how to cook a thing of ribs. You never know, but just be that person that they can talk to, be sociable. And again, it might not always be the environment you want to be in at first, but the more you insert yourself in being uncomfortable and they see you in that, it'll get easier and you won't even realize that you were ever uncomfortable to begin with.
Fantastic. And Kirsten, again, from Texas, the fact that you are a champion, I think it would be wildly, incredibly insane for anyone not to come to you for advice on how to cook ribs. So, Dion, may I get your thoughts on that one as well?
I would agree with the statement about inserting yourself. I think we have to be very careful with what that boys' club looks like and who that person is that we're asking to insert into those circles. I think I heard it best last year when someone said, if you're not being invited to the table, create your own. And that for me is something that, it hit home because of the fact that not all of those circles will accept you for who you are. And that's just been my experience at the end of the day. I can speak about sports till I'm blue in the face. I am just not going to be accepted in certain situations. So I think it's understanding that, yes, I agree with inserting, but if you're not being accepted the way you should be accepted for just being who you are and being able to connect with individuals, you got to move on. I mean, what you're doing is feeding into the definition of insanity.
Right? Yeah. Doing the same thing and expecting a different result. I agree. There's that self-awareness and that cutoff point.
Yeah.
Excellent. Eleni.
Thanks. Yes. Thank you. I'd like to say something which I totally understand that it might come across as a bit naive. I know that, but I want to throw that here either way. Ideally, I wouldn't like for boys' club to exist. other women's clubs do not exist. So instead of us trying to fit in and, try to have a discussion within these boys' clubs, maybe with the trusted advisor cycles that we discussed before, let's try to break these boys' clubs. Because frankly speaking, personally, I hate the terminology, I hate the existence. And whenever I try to fit in, sometimes I manage, sometimes not. But I can tell you, it was something hard. It was very uncomfortable. And very frankly speaking, I don't know why I should even try to discuss for things that are not of my interest. So ideally, and again, I say, I know it might be a bit naive, but if we aim big, maybe we will achieve something bigger. Let's try to break the boys' club. Everybody should feel comfortable along, women, men, whatever it is. So let's try to break the boys' clubs.
That's a fair request, Eleni. Yeah. And back to the point earlier about building that community and that community being intersectional, right? And there not being this one-dimensional approach. So thank you for that perspective. All right, I think we have time maybe for 2 more questions, but we'll at least give one a shot. And Dion, if I can bring this one over to you. How do we attract more women to the industry, specifically young professionals and that next generation of talent?
I think the biggest opportunity that we have is as industry professionals, especially those with, I don't want to say especially, I think there's benefit to bringing individuals in at various experience levels, so 0 to 5, 5 to 10, whatever. But it's understanding that outreach is the biggest opportunity to get into, high schools, grade schools, right? And start making insurance, giving these kids an opportunity. I do a lot of outreach. The association that we have, we're doing a career fair, right? There are people who are enrolled in certain programs. And I think we have to stop having a limited belief that to be successful in insurance, you have to have a financial background. That is not true, right? My background's in criminology and sociology. Nothing to do with finance. And I'm okay with that. But I made it work because I have the ambition to learn more. And so being able to identify groups, whether they're young female groups or otherwise, it's giving them that exposure, giving them opportunities through internships, volunteer work, and introducing them to the industry. I think that's huge.
Fantastic. I want to underscore what you're saying about starting early with the talent too and introducing this as early as high school. I agree with you, Dion. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, it looks like we are just about at time, audience. I know there were some other questions in the thread, and we'll do our best to try and get to those, but it will have to be at another time. So I do want to take a moment before we wrap up to thank you, audience members, for joining us for today's event. Hopefully you found it incredibly insightful and engaging and inspiring. That was our goal for today. I also want to extend a heartfelt thank you to our amazing panelists, Dion, Eleni, Samantha, and Kirsten. Your openness and willingness to share your experiences and your wisdom has truly made this a special event today. So thank you. And finally, I want to thank our sponsors. Again, without them, this could not have happened. We truly appreciate your support. And audience, bonus alert, there are still more sessions in the Dive-In Festival. So if you haven't checked them out yet, we have some happening throughout the remainder of today. And they will be made available via recording afterwards. So get registered for the remaining events. Don't let this end. And we hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you again, folks.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And well done to you, Tish.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.